With over 1,000 monsters to choose from in D&D, it can be hard to know which ones to use, and even harder to know how to play them. What weapons do they favor? What tactics do they use? How do they interact with other types of monsters? These are all questions that can come up to DMs that are looking to make their combats more enticing for their players. It's certainly one that I struggled with, which is why I'm back today with another monster breakdown for D&D. Hello again everyone, I'm Bill from AltRoll, and today I'm going to dive into a brief history of a D&D creature, how that history was adapted into 5th edition, and how this lore can help game masters make their combat encounters better. So whether you're here for the cool lore breakdown or for the combat breakdown, I'm hoping to give you a lot more to chew on when it comes to the monsters we face in D&D. For our 3rd episode here, I wanted to jump up a bit in terms of challenge rating and look at a sneaky monster that I've always been interested in but never got the chance to try, the Rakshasa. Rakshasa trace their lore back to Hinduism, being described as evil supernatural beings that feast on human flesh. Dwelling in forests, these enormously monstrous creatures were said to have 2 fangs protruding from the top of their mouth and claw-like fingernails. Using their supernatural powers, they could fly, vanish, and had the power to shapeshift at will to assume the form of any creature. Comparable to vampires in Western mythology, it's no wonder why these dangerous, shape-shifting monsters were brought over to D&D. In D&D, the Rakshasa has been around since the 1st edition monster manual in 1977, commonly shown as humanoids with the head and hands of a tiger or other carnivorous beast. Their hands were also unique, in that the palms of a Rakshasa face out from the body when the arms are at rest, and their finger joints bend backwards to grasp and manipulate objects. They are often depicted wearing fine robes of silk and tend to season their prey with an array of Eastern spices. Their artwork and style obviously takes influence from Eastern cultures, but Gary Gygax included them after being inspired by an episode of Kolchak the Night Stalker, where a Rakshasa antagonized a local neighborhood in the cult classic TV show. Thought to be the embodiment of pure evil, Rakshasa originated in the 9 Hells. Due to a dark ritual done by devils, they were released and fled onto the material plane to scheme and feed upon humanoid society. Once released into the world, Rakshasa move in the shadows of society, using their sorcery and illusions to appear as nobles, crime lords, or other rich merchants to carve out their own territory as far away from other Rakshasa as possible. They use these positions of power to feed their own ego, acquiring the finest goods, toughest minions, and living in the lap of luxury while prowling for more humanoids to devour. Due to their nature as immortal, fiendish spirits, a Rakshasa that is killed on the mortal plane is only dead temporarily, sending their spirit to wander the lower planes in agony while waiting for their body to reform. This reformation could take months or even years to finish, but it was inevitable. Once the body is reformed, the Rakshasa returns to it with all of its memories and powers, hungry for vengeance against their killer. Due to how long this reformation can take, though, sometimes entire generations have passed since the time of the Rakshasa's death, but this is no obstacle for their vengeance. Instead, they hunt down the family, friends, and even descendants of their foe with ruthless efficiency. There are few ways to truly kill a Rakshasa. If within the 9 Hells when slain, a Rakshasa will be permanently killed. However, there are rumors that they are vulnerable to magical or blessed weapons when wielded by good aligned creatures, and these may be enough to destroy their evil spirits. Despite these momentary victories, they are only short-lived, as every century a new Rakshasa generation would be born to replace their fallen parents. Despite their isolationism on the material plane, Rakshasa do gather in large communities on the outer planes. Rakshasa society in these communities is patriarchal, with female Rakshasas, known as Rakshasi, responsible for bearing, teaching, and disciplining children. The male Rakshasa work within a meritocratic caste system, climbing from the title of Rook to Raja to Maharaja. To climb these ranks means to wage physical and political battles, often requiring the enslavement or death of all who oppose the Rakshasa until they stand alone as Maharaja of all nearby clans. So to summarize their lore, Rakshasa are evil, near-immortal fiends that use magic, deception, and shapeshifting to manipulate themselves into positions of authority, all while feasting on humanoid flesh and scheming to become more powerful. Now that we've examined how Rakshasa lore has been implemented into D&D, let's pivot over to their mechanics by looking at their stat block. This is what the Rakshasa's stat block looks like. Let's break it down section by section and look at what's listed here in detail. Starting at the top, we have their size, creature type, and alignment. Size in 5th edition defines the space a creature takes up in combat, with a medium creature taking up a 5 foot by 5 foot square or hex on a battle map. Using the 3.5 edition Dungeon Master's Guide, shown here, the Rakshasa can be from 4 to 8 feet tall and weigh anywhere between 60 and 500 pounds. Their creature type is Fiend. Fiends are born of the evil of the lower planes, and include creatures such as demons, devils, Yugoloths, archfiends, and more. Alignment broadly describes a creature's general outlook on the world, and combines their moral beliefs with their attitudes towards society and order. The alignment of the Rakshasa is lawful evil, meaning they take what they want within the limits of a code of tradition, loyalty, or order. Below that top bar are the rest of the Rakshasa's stats, which are essential for the mechanical play of the creature by the Dungeon Master. The Rakshasa have a natural armor class of 16, have 13d8 plus 52 hit points for an average of 110 hit points, and have a movement speed of 40 feet. Looking at their ability scores, they have 14 strength, 17 dexterity, 18 constitution, 13 intelligence, 16 wisdom, and 20 charisma. With 10 being average for an ability score, this means Rakshasa have high scores on everything, but relative to their highest score of 20, they have a high dexterity, constitution, wisdom, and charisma, and lower strength and intelligence scores. For their skills and proficiencies, Rakshasa gain a +10 to deception, a +8 to insight, are vulnerable to piercing damage from magic weapons wielded by good creatures, are immune to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks, have dark vision out to 60 feet, have a passive perception of 13, speak common and infernal, have a proficiency bonus of +5, have a challenge rating of 13, and award 10,000 experience points when killed. In terms of special abilities, the Rakshasa has limited magic immunity and innate spellcasting. Limited magic immunity states the Rakshasa cannot be affected or detected by spells of 6th level or lower unless it wishes to be, and has advantage on saving throws against spells and magical effects. Innate spellcasting gives the Rakshasa a number of spells they can cast innately with certain limitations, using Charisma as their spellcasting ability. They can cast Detect Thoughts, Disguise Self, Mage Hand, and Minor Illusion at will, Charm Person, Detect Magic, Invisibility, Major Image, and Suggestion 3 times per day each, and Dominate Person, Fly, Plane Shift, and True Seeing once per day each. As for offensive actions, the Rakshasa is listed with a claw attack that has multi-attack, which allows it to make 2 claw attacks per attack action. Claw attack has a +7 to hit, a reach of 5 feet, deals 2d6 +2 slashing damage on hit, and curses the target with bad dreams on a hit. Cursed targets can gain no benefit from finishing a short or long rest until the curse is lifted by using a remove curse spell or similar magic. Lastly, we have their environment tags. When using digital resources, the only tag the Rakshasa has is the urban tag, meaning they're mostly found in towns and cities. Now that we've gone through and sorted out their stat block, we can begin to relate the Rakshasa's lore and abilities to how we should be using them in combat encounters. Specifically, we're going to look at how they behave, how they would approach a combat situation, and how to get into the mind of a Rakshasa if you want to fight effectively as one. How do we do this? Well, we'll take what we've already been shown in the lore and stat block of the monster and compare that with how that information is intended, referencing tactics and interpretations from The Monsters Know What They're Doing by Keith Amon, linked in the description. Let's start by going through Amon's key assumptions one by one and relating them to the Rakshasa as we go. The first of Amon's assumptions is that most creatures want to survive, and if seriously wounded, they will try to flee combat. Exceptions to this rule are fanatics or intelligent beings who believe they'll be hunted down and killed if they do flee. Seriously wounded can be subjective, but we can assume that threshold to roughly be 1/3 of the creature's health. With an average of 110 hit points, 1/3 of that would be rounded up to 37 hit points. So, if a Rakshasa is reduced to 37 hit points or fewer, it will begin to flee combat. Next up, let's look at how their alignment can impact their thinking. On the scale of good to evil, good creatures tend to be friendly to others, whereas evil creatures are hostile to others. On the scale of lawful to chaotic, lawful monsters may try to capture or non-lethally subdue others, whereas chaotic monsters may kill them. Since Rakshasa are lawful evil, we know two major things about them. First, Rakshasa will be willing to capture, imprison, or even enslave those they defeat in battle, unless some code, contract, or other loyalty states they shouldn't. Second, since they're evil, they're going to be outwardly hostile to other creatures, especially good ones. Continuing with their mindset, let's dive into some of their mental ability scores. Rakshasa have an intelligence score of 13. With regard to intelligence, Amon states, a creature with intelligence of 12 or higher can come up with a good plan and coordinate with others. It probably also has multiple ways of attacking and or defending and knows which is better in which situation. For example, a Rakshasa will be able to coordinate with their minions to hold down the party's tanky characters, while others go around the flank and attack the vulnerable casters or ranged characters. Rakshasa also have a wisdom score of 16. With regard to wisdom, Amon states, a creature with wisdom of 14 or higher chooses its battles carefully and fights only when it is sure it will win. This means that the Rakshasa will not fight a party that is prepared for them, choosing instead to wait for the right moment to strike when the party would be most unaware, like a predator seeking its prey. Now that we've set up how they think, let's look at the Rakshasa's physical abilities that influence how they fight. Thinking like Amon, we can assume the following. Creatures with low strength, whatever their dexterity and constitution, will always try to compensate with numbers. If their numbers are reduced enough, they'll scatter. Creatures with high dexterity can avoid damage well, and may favor ranged or finesse weapons in combat. Creatures with high constitution will have a hit point advantage over their opponents, and won't be afraid to get into melee with them. To recap our earlier stat block examination, Rakshasa have high dexterity and constitution, and relatively low strength. On top of that, they are immune to slashing, bludgeoning, and piercing damage from non-magical attacks, and immune to spell effects of 6th level or lower. Comparing these attributes to the guidelines we put forward, we can assume that the Rakshasa is a scrappy fighter that skirmishes by dashing in and out of melee combat with its claws. It may be supported by minions as well, gained through its social manipulations of an area, or through charm spells. Speaking of charm spells, because they have innate spellcasting, we should also look at the Rakshasa's spellcasting ability, Charisma. Charisma is their highest ability score, meaning the Rakshasa will prefer to use their spellcasting over their melee in combat. When it comes to the Rakshasa's spells, a lot of them are not very useful in combat, unfortunately. Dominate Person and Charm Person are good, but harder to pull off in open combat. Invisibility is a good way to avoid damage or reposition on the battle map. And Plane Shift is a great escape spell to get out of combat if the Rakshasa starts losing. Overall, the Rakshasa's spells are more suited to roleplay encounters than combat, but they can still be useful in combat encounters. Now finally, the last major assumption put forward by Aman is that in D&D 5th edition, unless otherwise specified, any creature gets their full movement, 1 action, 1 bonus action, and 1 reaction, just like any player character does. Aman posits that any creature that exists within the game world will have evolved in accordance with this rule, and it will seek to obtain the best possible result from the action economy of the game. This means they will combine whatever movement, actions, bonus actions, and reactions are available to it for the best possible outcome. For Rakshasa, all of their abilities are actions, but they do have the multi-attack feature. That means when unable to cast a spell that would cause enemies to be taken out of the fight or have disadvantage on their next attack, the Rakshasa will default to using their claw attacks to get more actions per turn in combat. So with all these assumptions laid out, what do we now know about how to use the Rakshasa? First, Rakshasa are predators, using schemes, traps, and patsies to try and take out a threat at their weakest. If open combat breaks out with a Rakshasa, they're either cornered and looking to escape, or they have you cornered and at your weakest. Second, Rakshasa are intelligent and wise, using skirmishing tactics to take out the most vulnerable opponents on the battlefield first. While they will prefer to use magic, they won't be afraid to bust out the claws if they have to. Third, Rakshasa will tend to use minions in battle, indicated from their lore, but also their affinity for charm spells. It wouldn't be unheard of for the Rakshasa to attempt to dominate one party member into attacking the others, but they may settle for using innocent bystanders or local guards to attack the party, giving the Rakshasa breathing room to attack, maneuver, cast a spell, or escape. Fourth, if reduced to 37 hit points or fewer, or has at least half of their minions killed, a Rakshasa may attempt to flee combat, using spells like Plane Shift or Fly to try to make a quick getaway. Given its immunity to normal weapon damage, the Rakshasa will quickly notice if a creature is able to damage it, and either target that creature or attempt to escape it as fast as possible. Fifth, if a Rakshasa wins a combat encounter, they're likely to imprison and enslave their foes unless they are honor-bound to kill them. While this is always going to be a DM's call, the Rakshasa's lore seems to imply that they would rather imprison the party, turning a TPK into a fun jailbreak encounter. And with that final point, we come to the end here for the Rakshasa. A deceptive predator on and off the battlefield, the Rakshasa is a hunter that can easily strike fear into the hearts of unprepared adventurers. Now, most of my parties haven't made it to a high enough level to even think about running into one of these monsters. But what do you all think of the Rakshasa? If you'd like to chat about it with us, you can do so over on the Alt-Roll Discord, which is linked in the description below. While on the server, you can pop into our courses that teach the basics of D&D, and if you like what we do, supporting us on our Ko-fi goes a long way in helping us keep Alt-Roll going. Of course, if you're interested in more content like this, giving the video a like or a comment helps us get our videos out there for more people to see. For now, that's all I had for you today. Thank you all so much, make sure to have a great rest of your day, and I'll see all of you next time.